So in American Gods Season 2, Episode 2, we first meet Mr. Town, who is torturing Shadow for information about what Shadow really is and what the old gods are up to. And we know from the last episode, Mr. Town works for Mr. World and is on Team New Gods. And with Shadow here, he's like in a setup Wolverine would be in, like he's getting mutated. And throughout this sequence, we get really, really creative camera shots to make that one scene more interesting because it's staying in the same place. So the cameramen are doing great here, putting in the work. And the whole machine that Shadow's in looks amazing. Again, Season 2 has a lot of budget restraints from Stars, but it's not looking that way. They're doing the best with what they got, so props for that. So then it cuts to the next day after the events with Mr. World, and we're at the diner. And what I like about this opening, again, the pace is still quick, and we see they're splitting everybody up. We see that Jin and Salim are going to find the spear for Odin. Sweeney and Laura are set to find Shadow, and Odin and Nancy are on to do God knows what. I like the pairings they have here. They all have their own interesting dynamic, so it could be cool to cut between them in each episode. They didn't get stagnant here and stay at this diner the whole episode, which I appreciate. And you get your first shot here, the crows flying over. And they're shot here a lot during the episode, which was great. It's just symbolizing war and death to come. So for this episode, I'm going to break down my review to two parts. First, we'll talk about Shadow's story, and then we'll talk about the side quests. So I will say, Dean Winter, who plays Mr. Town, I think he brought a little too much here. Every other villain in the show, aka New God, has felt real and convincing and knowing what they're doing and what they're about. He played this more like a cheesy action villain or a villain you'd see in a show like Agents of the S.H.I.E.L.D. Very robotic and a little detached from any human emotion, which I wasn't crazy about. But we'll see if that changes going forward. But we get some phenomenal acting from Ricky Whittle here, who plays Shadow. I mean, his acting gets better by each episode. And some nice symbolism here of the position he's in, where he's in the position of Christ on the cross, symbolizing him being the sacrificial lamb in a sense, or Son of God like Christ, aka for him, Son of Odin, in that type of sacrifice and form. And this machine he's on is causing him a ton of pain. He starts thinking about significant memories in his life, some painful, some joy with his mother. And I like they gave him a full backstory here, and it takes place in the 90s when he's a teen, and we see his mom, and they're coming from France to move to New York. And shout out to the beautiful shot they had of a fake World Trade Center. It looked amazing. Always gets me to choke up a little bit being someone who is from New York and still lives here. So that was a nice touch. But Shadow has a good instinct, we know this. And he knew as a teen, moving to New York wasn't a great idea. Hesitant about it. And the book we see him reading at home is Siddhartha. It's symbolism basically because it's just a book about someone's journey of spiritual self-discovery, which is basically the story of Shadow we were watching in American Gods. And the mom already says to him, "I love your light, my beautiful son." So this is connecting to Shadow being the light in the show. And we've clearly seen the light in Laura's eyes. I like this flashback because it showed how his roots are him being a good guy. Even though when we were introduced to Shadow's past, he was in prison, he was a con man, he was doing all this gambling. So it was good to see where his true heart is and where his upbringing came from. And this whole flashback almost felt like the Moonlight story, if you've ever seen that movie. Won Best Picture a couple years ago, where there's bullying going on, and he decides to eventually stand up to these type of bullies. It works so well that he first got bullied, so it would make sense he built sympathy for the other kid who's getting bullied in the alley later on. And after he defends this kid who gets bullied, he comes home and his mom's like, "This isn't you." His mom, you see now, is a source of wisdom, and she raised him in a way where she's saying, see things from other people's perspectives, the bullies that bullied you, the cops. And I love too they address this father mystery here, because he says to his mother, "Who is he? Who's my dad?" And she's like, "He's long gone, he's not around." So it's adding that mystery. I like that we're just as confused as Shadow about that. And we see here Shadow going through a lot of tragedy at a young age, especially with the news of his mother getting sick at the hospital. But what was really interesting is seeing this mysterious figure. We only see his hands with that coin that Shadow loves, and magic. And Shadow loves magic. And we learn now that's where the obsession came from. And the figure vanished. So you gotta wonder now, what god was that? And You gotta figure whoever this god was, they already knew about Shadow early on and had their eye on him. Come on, this is easy to figure out. Shadow's definitely got more gifts than we know about, and that he is something special, more than a human. But you see the difference between the mom and Shadow is the mom preaches to him to be the good, follow that light he is. She's not really a fighter, she's more peace and trying to understand other sides. But Shadow protected that kid from the bullies and is a fighter. He wants to take it on. He's the aggressor. And this theme connected beautifully when he went to the church after his mother died. And he's about to pray, but instead he clenches his fist and gets up. He's not going to sit on the sidelines. He's not like that. That's the main difference between him and his mom. But he's coming from a place of good. And he also takes on the Jesus-like role. And it works because he's looking at a statue of Jesus and it's cutting back and forth between him on this machine like Jesus. So he's almost not the guy who follows a religion. He wants to almost be the religious symbol. Again, this sacrifice worthy of doing something for the greater good. So props to the writers and how it all wrapped around. The editing was really tight and flowed smoothly to deliver this message. And we got some really important lines here where Mr. Town says to Shadow, I know you dreamt snow and then snow happened. And Shadow's like, I don't know what you're talking about. But again, alluding to this specialness of Shadow we're going to learn more about, and that your theories, if you haven't read the book, which I have not, I'm going to say, obviously Shadow's a god of some sort. And you got to wonder who he was really born to. Because again, the mom even had a line where she's alluding to, I gave you that light. Well, where'd you get that light from? How did he get that? So we'll get to the ending scene, but let's first cover the side quests now. So we get an interesting scene with Mr. World and Bilquis here. And it shows Bilquis is actually a pure middleman here. She doesn't want war, but Mr. World fully wants her to commit to the new gods. Choose a side. He wants love as a weapon for war. Bilquis has a great line. War and love are on different sides of the coin for a reason. They should never meet. But Mr. World's like, if you don't choose a side, you will be trampled by both. Very interesting. And I'm excited to see how Bilquis plays out in all of this. Also, the humor here I love with the sequences with Mr. Nancy and Odin in the car together. Clever stuff where really quickly you see Mr. Nancy's using a map instead of a GPS because they're the old gods, so that's perfect. And then you see in another scene, Odin bought Mr. Nancy a box of fried chicken for him to eat. So again, being the old gods, it's an old racist thing you would do. It's just a stereotype. So it's just humor that they're making a joke out of how old gods would behave, like basically like old humans would. And I really love this scene. Looked really cool with Technical Boy in Times Square. He's looking for media, looking for through literally ads and media. And I like how they showed his power. Like, hey, he's strutting his stuff here. He's like, you can't hide on me. I'm what makes you work. He is the technology. And then he kind of gives her breathing room. He's like, fine, get back to me. But again, it's going to be interesting to see how they handle this media now with the actress leaving. But they're really good with the creativity here and always figuring out new ways to involve this new technology. And little lines they have, even when he's referencing that he doesn't want to get downvoted. It's so perfect for a millennial like that. It's effort here, and that's what this show so far is showing, which is really good. So Sweeney and Laura are going to Mad Goose Chase now, following Shadow's light, and they hit an open field that's a dead end, which also looks amazing. You can tell the editors really brought up the color on that grass, and the blue flowers looked really cool. And it was just so cool seeing Laura, this corpse laying back at the dirt in this field, ready to give up, ready to go back underground. But I love seeing this nice side of this crazy leprechaun Sweeney, encouraging her not to give up. And he gives her a shortcut, and she's like, you never told me about this? And they go through this spinning thing in the horde. It's odd, but it's cool. And what was really cool, throwback they had here, is when they appear right above this train. It's interesting, Laura takes handcuffs off of him because she's originally the one who had put handcuffs on him. So it just shows you how much she's changed her opinion of Mad Sweeney. So then we cut to a really exciting scene with Wednesday talking to his car, and it's Betty the Barbarian, a berserker. Always exciting when they're summoning a new character. And it's so funny when Mr. Nancy's like, oh, hell no, I am out. And him leaving and then seeing these crows again, showing this is all bad news here. And it's really cool how they connected. The train that everyone's on now is going to hit into this car Wednesday has set up. And we get some really cool hand-to-hand combat action here with Laura and Sweeney on the train. I loved Laura when she stepped on that guy's head. I love gore like that. It looked great. Brutal. I love a show that's not afraid to just go for it. If you're doing it, do it all the way. And then we get a really effective shot back where Wednesday is with the storm brewing and the train signal going. And we see Laura has hit her objective, made it to Shadow. She's like, I had to save you. She's seeing such a transformation for Laura here. And this is such an ending, seeing this train hit the car through Wednesday's eye. And you see the horse appear, Black Betty. So the Black Betty's song in the credit music was great. Another awesome episode. This season's shocking me. For me, both these first 2 episodes are better than any episode last season. I see you, new showrunner. No one believes in you. You're the 3rd guy to step up to the plate, and man, you are killing it. Gotta root for the underdog here. I am impressed. I am really enjoying this. Again, I'm just excited for what's to come now. I didn't feel this way in season 1. Picking up the pace, great, and you could see that this new showrunner is addressing all the complaints people had. Again, like Shadow not having a lot of answers, and now he's more informed, so he's a better character because of it. He's making Laura more likable. He's giving everyone more purpose, and he's letting the big players get screen time. It's keeping it exciting and giving depth to Shadow's character with a great backstory. So this episode's getting a 9.1 for me. Hope this keeps up with the season. Are you liking it as much as me? Please comment below with your thoughts on this episode. I'd love to hear it. Also, please leave book spoilers out of the comments. I have not read the book, and I like to keep it just the TV discussion. If you're going to reference anything from the book, make sure it's something that happened before anything we've already seen in the show. I read every comment and try to respond to as many as I can. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss one of my reviews of American Gods, and I review a bunch of TV shows as well, so you don't want to miss one. And please follow me at SteveVarley1 on Twitter and Instagram for more of me. And I'll see you next time.